It was a night when the rain fell like tears from heaven. The road between Abeokuta and Lagos was dark and empty. Only the sound of water hitting the ground could be heard. Then came the blue lights. Police sirens cutting through the darkness like sharp knives. A black Lexus Jeep sat by the roadside, engine still warm. The officer walked closer, his flashlight shaking in his hand. "Sir, open your boot," he said to the man in the white suit. The man smiled, gold tooth shining. "Officer, I am Pastor Elijah Adebayo. Man of God. Please, I'm late for midnight prayer." But the officer did not smile back. "Open it now." When the boot clicked open, the world stopped breathing. Inside were bundles wrapped in white church linen. Red liquid dripped slowly to the ground. The officer stepped back, his hand covering his mouth. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. Pastor Elijah's smile disappeared. His hands began to shake. By morning, all of Abeokuta would know. The man who healed the sick was carrying death in his car. The news spread faster than fire in dry grass. By 6 in the morning, radios across the city were buzzing. Breaking news: popular miracle pastor arrested with human parts. Market women dropped their baskets. Bus drivers parked and listened. In the church compound, members gathered at the locked gates. Some were crying. Others were angry. "It's a lie," Mama Kemi shouted, tears running down her face. "Pastor Elijah prayed for my daughter. She had no child for 10 years. Now she has twins." Another woman shook her head. "But they found body parts in his car. Fresh ones. How do you explain that?" WhatsApp groups exploded with voice notes. Some defended him. Others cursed him. The city was divided like a broken calabash. Nobody could agree on the truth. Inside the police station, Pastor Elijah sat in a cold room. His white suit was dirty now. His gold tooth no longer shone. He stared at the wall, saying nothing. Outside, journalists pushed against each other, cameras flashing. Everyone wanted to know, how did the man of God become the man of death? Long before the white suit and the Lexus Jeep, there was a boy named Elijah. He grew up in a small village outside Abeokuta. His mother was a prayer warrior. Every morning at 4, she would kneel and pray until the sun came up. Young Elijah would watch her, his small hands folded. "Mama, why do you pray so long?" he once asked. She smiled and touched his head gently. "My son, one day you will speak for God. I am preparing the way." Elijah believed her. He was a quiet boy who loved the church. He sang in the choir, even though his voice was not the strongest. He read the Bible by candlelight when other children played outside. But Elijah had one problem. He stammered when he spoke. The other children laughed at him. Elijah the STST stammerer, they would mock. It hurt him deeply. His mother would hold him and say, "God uses broken vessels, my son. Your weakness will become your strength." Elijah held on to those words like a rope in deep water. When Elijah turned 21, his mother died. It was sudden, like wind blowing out a candle. She fell sick one evening and was gone by morning. At her funeral, Elijah stood before the crowd and tried to speak. My mother was a woman of prayer," he stammered, tears streaming down his face. The village pastor, Pastor Bade, came to him afterward. He was an old man with kind eyes. "Young man," he said, "your mother told me about you. She said you would carry the word of God." Elijah wiped his tears. "But I can't even speak properly." Pastor Bade smiled. Moses also stammered, yet God used him to deliver a nation. "Come and work with me." From that day, Elijah became Pastor Bade's assistant. He learned to preach, to pray, to lay hands on the sick. The stammering got better with time. After 3 years, Pastor Bade told him, "It is time for you to start your own church." Elijah was afraid, but he obeyed. He rented a small room in Abeokuta and called it Faith Mountain Chapel. The first Sunday, only 5 people came. The next Sunday, 3. By the 3rd month, sometimes nobody came at all. Elijah would sweep the empty chairs and cry. His wife, Folake, tried to encourage him. "God's time is the best," she would say. But Folake was tired too. She woke up at 4 every morning to fry akara and sell at the bus stop just so they could eat. One evening, Elijah sat outside the church, staring at the sky. "God, I have served you faithfully. Why are you silent?" he prayed. No answer came. Across town, another pastor named Pastor Mike was on television. His church had 5,000 members. Politicians visited him. He drove a Range Rover and wore expensive suits. People called him the Prophet of Fire. Elijah watched him on a small television screen at a barber shop. His heart burned with envy. "Why him and not me?" he whispered. That night, a thought entered his mind like a snake sliding through grass. Maybe power must be taken, not waited for. He tried to push it away, but the thought stayed, growing stronger each day. One afternoon, a man came to Faith Mountain Chapel. He was well dressed, with a gold watch and clean shoes. "Pastor Elijah," he said, smiling, "I have heard about you." Elijah was surprised. Nobody talked about him. Nobody knew him. "Who are you?" he asked. The man sat down slowly. "My name is not important. But I know someone who can help you. Someone who opens doors that God has closed." Elijah felt cold inside. "What do you mean?" The man leaned forward. "There is a prophet in Lagos. They call him Baba Kalechi. He helps pastors like you. Pastors who are faithful but forgotten." Elijah shook his head. "I don't need help from any Baba. I serve God." The man stood up, still smiling. "Then enjoy your empty church." He walked to the door, then turned. "When you are ready, come to number 7, Lagoon Street, Lagos. Baba Kalechi will be waiting." Then he left. Elijah stood there, confused and angry. But deep inside, a seed had been planted. 3 weeks later, when only 2 people came to church, Elijah took a bus to Lagos. Lagoon Street was dark and quiet. The houses looked old, like they had been standing for 100 years. Elijah found number 7. It was a small building painted black. His hands shook as he knocked. The door opened by itself. Inside, candles burned in every corner. The air smelled like herbs and smoke. "Come in, Pastor Elijah," a voice said from the shadows. An old man stepped into the light. He wore white robes and many beads around his neck. His eyes were sharp like a hawk's. "You are Baba Kalechi?" Elijah asked. The old man nodded. "I have been waiting for you." Elijah wanted to run, but his legs would not move. "How did you know I would come?" Baba Kalechi smiled. "Because I see things others cannot see. I saw you 3 weeks ago, crying in your empty church." Elijah's heart beat faster. "Can you help me?" The old man picked up a small bottle filled with black oil. "This oil will change everything. Anoint your hands before you preach. Miracles will follow." Elijah reached for it, then stopped. "What is the price?" Baba Kalechi's smile faded. "There is always a price, my son. But don't worry about it now. Take the oil. Use it. When the time comes, I will tell you what you owe." Elijah took the bottle. It felt heavy in his hand, heavier than it should be. "What is in this oil?" he asked. "Power," Baba Kalechi replied. "The kind that makes blind eyes see and deaf ears hear. The kind that fills churches and empties doubts." Elijah looked at the bottle for a long time. His mother's voice echoed in his mind, "God uses broken vessels." But another voice whispered louder, "God helps those who help themselves." He put the bottle in his pocket. "Thank you," he said quietly. As he turned to leave, Baba Kalechi called out, "Pastor Elijah, remember this, every light casts a shadow. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow." Elijah did not understand, but he nodded and left. On the bus back to Abeokuta, he held the bottle tightly. He told himself it was just oil. Special oil blessed by a man of God. Nothing more. But deep inside, he knew he was lying. The following Sunday, Elijah anointed his hands with the black oil before service. Only 7 people came, as usual. He preached about faith, his voice stronger than before. At the end, he called for prayer. "Who needs healing today?" he asked. An old woman raised her hand. "Pastor, my legs pain me. I cannot walk well." Elijah walked to her and placed his hands on her legs. The moment he touched her, something happened. Heat rushed through his body like fire. The old woman screamed and jumped up. "My legs! The pain is gone." She began to walk around the church, then she ran, then she danced. The other 6 people stood up, shouting, "Miracle! God has visited us." Word spread quickly. By the next Sunday, 30 people came. The Sunday after that, 100. A blind man came, and Elijah touched his eyes. The man blinked once, twice, then shouted, "I can see! I can see colors!" A woman who could not speak for 5 years suddenly began to sing. People fell down crying. They called him the Fire Prophet. Within 3 months, Faith Mountain Chapel could not hold the crowds. Elijah rented a bigger building. Then an even bigger one. His church grew from 100 members to 1,000. Television stations came to interview him. Newspapers wrote stories about him. Politicians began to visit his services. "Pastor Elijah," they would say, "pray for me to win the election." And when he prayed, they won. Businessmen came with briefcases full of money. "Pastor, bless my business." And their businesses prospered. Elijah bought a car, then a Lexus Jeep. He moved his wife Folake into a big house with a swimming pool. He wore expensive white suits and gold jewelry. His gold tooth became his signature. People would point and say, "That's Pastor Elijah, the man whose prayers never fail." Folake was happy at first. "God has finally answered our prayers," she said. But slowly, she began to notice strange things. Elijah would disappear at night without explanation. He stopped sleeping in their room. His eyes looked different, darker somehow. One evening, she found bloodstains on his white robe. "Elijah, what is this?" she asked, trembling. He looked at her coldly. "You don't understand spiritual matters. Don't ask questions." 6 months after the miracles began, Baba Kalechi appeared in Elijah's dream. "It is time to pay," he said. Elijah woke up sweating. The next day, his phone rang. "Unknown number. Come to Lagoon Street tonight," Baba Kalechi's voice said. Then the line went dead. Elijah drove to Lagos, his hands gripping the steering wheel. Inside the black house, Baba Kalechi sat waiting. "The altar is hungry," he said simply. "What altar?" Elijah asked, though he feared the answer. The old man's eyes gleamed. "The altar that gave you power. Every miracle has a source, Pastor. Yours comes from forces that demand payment." Elijah's mouth went dry. "What kind of payment?" Baba Kalechi stood up and walked to a back room. He returned with a small bag. "You must bring offerings. Not goats or chickens. Human offerings." Elijah stumbled backward. "No, I cannot kill people." The old man laughed. "Kill? No, no. You simply deliver what is already dead. There are people who die every day in accidents, in hospitals. You bring me what they leave behind." Elijah shook his head. "This is evil. Evil." Baba Kalechi's voice turned cold. "Was it evil when your church was empty? Was it evil when your wife suffered? Was it evil when you took my oil and became famous?" Elijah had no answer. The old man continued, "The power you enjoy does not come free. I told you there would be a price. Now you must pay, or everything you have built will collapse in one day." Fear gripped Elijah's heart. "How long do I have?" 3 days, Baba Kalechi replied. "Bring the offering to the lagoon at midnight on Friday. Do not fail me." Elijah left the house feeling like he was drowning. For 2 days, he could not eat or sleep. His wife asked what was wrong, but he said nothing. On Thursday night, he heard about a car accident on the Lagos-Ibadan expressway. Many people died. His hands shook as an evil thought formed in his mind. That night, he drove to the mortuary. He knew the attendant there, a church member. "Pastor, what brings you here so late?" the man asked. Elijah smiled weakly. "I need a favor." The attendant looked confused but obeyed. Money changed hands. Elijah left the mortuary with a wrapped bundle in his boot. He drove through the empty streets, his heart pounding like a drum. At the lagoon, Baba Kalechi was waiting. "You came," he said, satisfied. Elijah handed him the bundle, unable to look at it. "Is this enough?" The old man opened it slightly, nodded, then threw it into the water. The lagoon seemed to swallow it hungrily. "For now," Baba Kalechi said. "But remember, the altar always hungers. You will bring more." Elijah drove home in silence, tears streaming down his face. He looked at himself in the mirror. The man staring back was a stranger. Over the following months, Elijah's fame grew even greater. He built a cathedral worth millions. He traveled abroad for crusades. Presidents shook his hand. But inside, he was dying. Each miracle came with a demand. Every 3 months, he made the dark journey. He told himself it was for the ministry, for the thousands of souls being saved. But the lie tasted bitter on his tongue. His assistant, Brother Tund, began to notice things. "Pastor, you look tired," he said one day. "When last did you sleep?" Elijah forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just busy doing God's work." But Brother Tund was not convinced. He started watching Elijah closely. One night, he followed him. He saw Elijah drive to a strange location, meet with an old man, and hand over something wrapped in cloth. Brother Tund's stomach turned. The next morning, he confronted Elijah. "Pastor, what did I see last night?" Elijah's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "The man by the lagoon. The bundle you gave him." "Pastor, what is happening?" Elijah grabbed Brother Tund by the collar. "You saw nothing. Do you understand?" "Nothing." Brother Tund pulled away, fear in his eyes. "Pastor, I will pray for you." He turned to leave. "Tund, wait," Elijah called. But Brother Tund did not look back. 3 days later, Brother Tund went missing. His family searched everywhere. Police were called. Nobody could find him. Elijah told the church, "Let us pray for his safe return." But he avoided everyone's eyes. Folake could no longer pretend everything was fine. Her husband had become a different person. He no longer prayed at home. He no longer smiled. At night, she heard him crying in his study. One evening, she gathered courage and entered his study without knocking. Elijah was on his knees, rocking back and forth. "They won't leave me alone," he muttered. "They keep demanding more." "Who won't leave you alone?" Folake asked, her voice shaking. Elijah turned and looked at her. His eyes were red and wild. "You wouldn't understand." "Then make me understand," she shouted. "I am your wife. Whatever burden you carry, let me help you carry it." For a moment, Elijah's face softened. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. "It's too late," he whispered. "I've gone too far." Folake knelt beside him. "It's never too late to return to God." Elijah laughed bitterly. "Return? With these hands? With this blood?" He held up his trembling hands. "I built this church on graves, Folake. Every miracle you witnessed, every healing you celebrated, it all came from darkness." Folake's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" Elijah's voice broke as he confessed everything. The black oil, Baba Kalechi, the offerings at the lagoon, Brother Tund's disappearance. With each word, Folake felt her world crumbling. "No," she whispered, backing away. "No, no, no. Not you. Not my husband." "I wanted to make you proud," Elijah cried. "I wanted to give you everything. I wanted to prove that I wasn't just the stammering village boy." Folake stood up, tears streaming down her face. "I was already proud of you. When we had nothing but 5 people in church, I was proud. When we could only afford Gary for dinner, I was proud. Because you were faithful." She walked to the door. "But now I don't know who you are." "Folake, please." Elijah reached for her. "Don't touch me," she screamed. "Don't ever touch me with those hands." She ran out of the study, out of the house. Elijah collapsed on the floor, sobbing. Outside, the night was quiet. But inside Elijah's chest, A storm was raging. Everything was falling apart. The next Sunday, Elijah stood before his congregation. 5,000 people filled the cathedral. They sang, they danced, they praised. "Today, God wants to do something special," Elijah announced. "Who needs a miracle?" Hundreds of hands shot up. Elijah began to pray, moving through the crowd. A woman with cancer claimed she was healed. A man in a wheelchair stood up and walked. The crowd erupted in celebration. But as Elijah prayed, he felt nothing. The power that once rushed through him felt cold and distant. That night, Baba Kalechi called. "You have not paid in 3 months," his voice crackled. "The altar is angry." "I can't do it anymore," Elijah said. "I won't." The old man laughed. "You think you can stop? The covenant you made cannot be broken. If you stop feeding the altar, it will feed on you." "I don't care," Elijah replied, his voice stronger now. "I'm done. I'd rather die than continue this." "You will not die alone," Baba Kalechi warned. "Everyone you love will pay. Your wife, your church members, everyone." The line went dead. Elijah sat in darkness, fear wrapping around him like chains. 3 days passed. Nothing happened. Elijah began to hope that maybe Baba Kalechi's threat was empty. He went to the church office to prepare for Sunday service. As he worked, he heard sirens outside. Police cars surrounded the cathedral. Pastor Elijah Adebayo, an officer, called through a megaphone. "Come out with your hands up." Elijah's heart stopped. He walked outside slowly. 20 officers stood with guns drawn. "What is happening?" he asked. "We received a report," the lead officer said. "We need to search your vehicle." "On what grounds?" Elijah demanded. The officer handed him a document. "We have a warrant. Open your Lexus Jeep." Elijah's hands shook as he reached for his keys. He had not opened his boot in days. Had not even driven the car. As the boot clicked open, Elijah's knees nearly gave way. Inside were fresh bundles wrapped in white church linen. Blood dripped onto the cathedral driveway. "Jesus Christ!" an officer shouted. Elijah stepped back, his hands up. "I didn't put those there. I swear." But nobody believed him. How could they? Within hours, the news spread across Nigeria. Popular miracle pastor caught with human parts in his car. Television stations broadcast the footage non-stop. Social media exploded with shock and anger. At the police station, journalists swarmed like bees. Camera flashes lit up the night. Elijah sat in a cold interrogation room, still wearing his white suit, now stained and wrinkled. An officer entered and sat across from him. "Pastor, you have one chance to tell the truth," he said. "What were you doing with human body parts?" Elijah stared at the table. How could he explain? That an evil prophet had framed him? That the forces he had been serving for years had turned against him? "I am innocent," he finally said. But his voice carried no conviction. The officer leaned forward. "We found your fingerprints on the cloth. We found payment records linking you to the mortuary. We have witnesses who saw you making strange trips at night." Each word was a nail in Elijah's coffin. "And there's more," the officer continued. "We found Brother Tun's body, in the same condition as what was in your car." Elijah's world went dark. Brother Tund was dead. The young man who had trusted him, who had followed him faithfully, was gone. And Elijah knew who was responsible. Not him directly, but the forces he had allied himself with. "I want to confess," Elijah whispered. The officer pressed record on his phone. "Go ahead." For 3 hours, Elijah told everything. The empty church, the desperation, Baba Kalechi, the black oil, the midnight offerings. The officer listened, his face growing darker with each detail. "So you're saying you made a deal with an occult prophet?" he asked. Elijah nodded. "I was a fool. I thought I could control it. I thought I was still serving God." "And the body parts in your car?" "I stopped making offerings 3 months ago. Baba Kalechi threatened me. He said if I didn't pay, everyone would suffer. I think he put those there to destroy me." The officer closed his notebook. Whether he put them there or not, you admitted to being involved in these activities for 2 years. That makes you an accomplice to multiple crimes. News of Elijah's confession spread like wildfire. The reaction was swift and brutal. His church members felt betrayed and heartbroken. Some wept openly, unable to reconcile the man who had healed them with the man who had confessed to evil. Others were angry, throwing stones at the cathedral, painting "fake prophet" on the walls. Folake watched the news from her sister's house, tears streaming down her face. Her sister held her hand. "I told you something was wrong with him. I should have insisted," Folake sobbed. "I should have forced him to tell me everything earlier." "This is not your fault," her sister said firmly. "He made his choices." But Folake couldn't stop the guilt. Had she been too focused on the blessings to see the warning signs? Had her own enjoyment of wealth made her blind? Meanwhile, police raided Baba Kalechi's house on Lagoon Street. But when they arrived, the building was empty. Not just empty of people, but empty of everything. No furniture, no candles, no beads. Just an abandoned house that looked like it hadn't been lived in for years. "He knew we were coming," an officer muttered. At the police station, a crowd gathered demanding justice. "He must face the law," they shouted. "No special treatment for fake pastors." Inside, Elijah sat alone in his cell. The other prisoners avoided him, whispering prayers when they passed by. The guard brought him food, but he couldn't eat. That night, he dreamed of his mother. She stood in white, her face sad but loving. "My son," she said, "what have you done?" "Mama, I'm sorry," Elijah cried in the dream. "I wanted to be great. I wanted to make you proud." "I was already proud," she replied, the same words Folake had spoken. "God called you for a purpose, but you traded it for fame." "Can God forgive me?" Elijah asked. His mother smiled sadly. "God can forgive anything. But consequences still follow our choices." When Elijah woke up, he knew what he had to do. He called for the guard. "I want to speak publicly. I want to confess everything to the nation." "Pastor, your lawyer would advise against that," the guard warned. "I don't care," Elijah said. "The truth must come out." A press conference was arranged. Every major television station broadcast it live. The room was packed with journalists, church leaders, and curious citizens. Elijah walked in wearing simple prison clothes. No white suit, no gold jewelry. Just a broken man. He sat before the microphones and cameras. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then, tears began to flow. "My name is Elijah Adebayo," he began, his voice cracking. "You knew me as a man of God, as a miracle worker, as someone anointed by heaven." He paused, wiping his eyes. "But I was a fraud, a liar, a man who sold his soul for applause." The room was silent. "I started with good intentions. I wanted to serve God faithfully. But when success didn't come fast enough, I made a terrible choice. I sought power from darkness, and I dressed it up as light." He detailed everything again. The black oil, the offerings, the lies. "Every miracle you witnessed through me came with a price. A price paid in blood and evil. I am responsible for Brother Tun's death. I am responsible for the deaths of others." "To my wife Folake," Elijah continued, looking directly at the camera, "I am sorry. You deserved a man of integrity. Instead, you got a coward who chose fame over faith." His voice grew stronger. "To my church members, I deceived you. I made you think God was moving when darkness was operating. Some of you were genuinely healed, and I believe God's mercy worked despite my sin. But the foundation was rotten." He looked at the crowd of journalists. "I am not asking for sympathy. I will face whatever punishment comes. I deserve it. But I am here to warn others." He leaned forward. "Not everyone who performs miracles is sent by God. Not every prophet who speaks is speaking truth. Test everything. Don't be so hungry for miracles that you stop asking questions. The devil can heal bodies while destroying souls. He can fill churches while emptying heaven. I am living proof of that." Elijah stood up. "I have one request. Find Baba Kalechi. He is still out there, recruiting other desperate pastors. Stop him before he destroys more lives. The press conference ended in stunned silence. Nobody asked questions. There was nothing more to say. 6 months later, Elijah was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The cathedral was demolished. Faith Mountain Chapel became a hospital, serving the community in a new way. Folake eventually found peace, though she never remarried. She started a ministry helping women whose husbands had betrayed them. She would tell them, healing is possible, even after the deepest wounds. Some of Elijah's former church members formed small fellowship groups. They learned to worship without depending on miracles and spectacle. They learned that faith is built on truth, not on wonders. In prison, Elijah spent his days reading his Bible, the same one his mother had given him years ago. He led a small Bible study with other inmates, teaching them simply and humbly. His stammering sometimes returned, but nobody mocked him now. One day, a young prisoner asked, "Pastor Elijah, do you regret everything?" Elijah thought for a long time. "I regret the path I chose. But I'm grateful for one thing." "What's that?" "I finally learned what my mother tried to teach me. That true power is not in miracles or crowds. It's in faithfulness. Even when nobody is watching. Even when success doesn't come. The cathedral may have fallen. The crowds may have scattered. But in that prison cell, something real was finally being built. Not on sand or spectacle, but on repentance and truth. And that, perhaps, was the greatest miracle of all.